I love going on the internet. Love going on the internet. Hi, everybody. Happy lunch hour. Well, I guess it's not lunch hour for everybody. Happy lunch hour for the people whose lunch hour it is. Okay, hold on. I'm going to find Adrien. It's my favorite part. Let's see here. I feel a little bit better because I've been watching a little more of these chats, and everyone does exactly what I'm doing, which just is like a very calm looking, slow, quiet panic as they look for the person that they're going live with. Adrien, I'm gonna find you. Hey.
Hi, Tegan.
Hi, Adrien. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. I was just joking that it's lunch hour, but I guess just for me. And where you are, is that 2 hours ahead or from, like, are you
Three. So,
three? You're Eastern.
yes, it's snack and coffee hour for me.
TGIF.
Ex-
Oh my goodness, no, I'm sorry. This is very Tegan and Sara-esque, but my mom is trying to FaceTime me, so I apologize.
Perfect.
Knowing my mom, she'll then make a second attempt, so my apologies. Adrien, how are you? What's going on?
Oh my goodness, this is just such an honor to be here. I have been a Tegan and Sara fan for years. I'm 33, but I remember listening to the con as a baby queer, so this is just
Uh,
incredible.
that's
So happy
exciting.
to be here.
I have
Yeah.
very fond memories of being 33 years old, so uh um I was really excited to do this because I mean when the pandemic hit, one of the things I worried about most was what our work with Tegan and Sara Foundation would pivot to, because
Mm,
so many of the things that we fund are physical spaces, summer camps and hackathons and GSAs and stuff in schools, and but it's been just this incredible journey the last couple of months, seeing how we are able to pivot and how many incredible organizations are still doing wonderful things for their community. And so I'm really thrilled and honored to be able to speak to you. You're one of our grantees from this COVID-19 community grant initiative that we did, and it's just an honor to talk to you and to read about all the work that you're doing. And you're just really wonderful. And I want to say thank you for everything you do for the community.
Thank you so much.
will you will you tell everyone a little bit about Queer Kentucky, just so that I don't do it?
Absolutely. So Spencer, the founder of Queer Kentucky, sort of noticed a lack in representation for queer, non-binary, trans people, just a lack of a platform for our stories and voices here in
Hmm.
the state of Kentucky.
Hmm.
And so originally, the plan was just to create Queer Kentucky as a platform, a publication to raise visibility around our voices and stories. And since then, it has grown and expanded to also include education, which is a big part of my role within Queer Kentucky.
That's really exciting. I love that. I know that you're also a poet. I'm
Yes.
wondering how much of your creative side kind of works its way into the work that you do with Queer Kentucky.
A good amount. I do a lot of writing for Queer Kentucky. I write a column on my experiences as a trans queer man called Thinking Queerly on the website. And just the education aspect, I do a lot of writing and researching to prepare for the workshops, the inclusivity workshops that I do. So it's a great outlet for my creativity, for sure.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What, like, I give us a little overview. I mean, everywhere is so different. I know here in Vancouver, we've flattened the curve, and,
Mm.
people are starting to go out again. What's it like in Kentucky? What's it been like, generally, but also how do you think that the community, LGBTQ community is doing? What would be your sort of overview of what's been happening there?
Sure. So I think that as a state, we have been doing pretty good on the whole. We have a pretty amazing governor. Governor Andy Bashir has really been a great leader throughout all of this and helping us, social distance and flatten the curve. And we were pretty much shut down for a couple of months, and we've just slowly been reopening at this point.
Right.
So going through it like every other place is, but I think that on the whole, the state has done a pretty good job. And, LGBTQ people, like anywhere else, are definitely feeling this. Depression, anxiety, substance abuse are issues that our community, is especially prone to. I'm
Yeah.
personally in the recovery community here in Louisville, and I've seen a lot of, people having a hard time throughout this, but we've also banded together and I think are going to come through strong.
Did a lot of things move to the digital sphere? Like, did a lot of meetings move to like, is that sort of how everybody's been getting together?
Yes, lots and lots of Zoom meetings. I've become more comfortable with that with time.
It must be really, I don't know. It's for me, I spend so much time on like, FaceTime and Zoom and obviously with touring and traveling. So for me, it was like a really
Yeah.
natural, but it's been really funny and ridiculous to watch people who've never, and I'm not talking like people who shouldn't know, just young people who aren't used to it, all of a sudden having to like find a space in their apartment and
Yes.
it adds all this stress, but it also adds some comedy. Has there been some lighthearted moments? Is there something interesting and cool about putting this community in a really different space that's working?
There have definitely been positives and negatives. It's been really cool to bring our trainings into the virtual sphere because it means that, people can attend the trans inclusivity trainings that would not otherwise, that are not
Yeah,
local. So that's
yeah.
been awesome.
What
But yeah.
what are trainings like? That was one of my questions that I had. Like, can you give us a snippet? Like, how do you approach these trainings? What are maybe a few things you could talk about the trainings? Because I know you lead them, and so
Yeah, absolutely. So the trainings are sort of two-part. They start with a presentation by me that's typically roughly 45 minutes or so, and then they go into a long Q&A where I engage with the audience and take questions and answer those, sharing my personal experience as well as what I know about best practices for the workplace. And the presentation itself, the format of that is sort of, I start out with kind of explaining the importance of trans inclusivity in the workplace. And I address that from a human perspective and then
yeah,
also from a business perspective. So why, as an employer, it's just a good idea to be inclusive from that standpoint. And then I dive into sort of a gender and sexuality 101, kind of a basic terms and definitions, foundation of those things that you need to know. And then I go into the meat of the presentation, which is, the best practices that you can implement in your workplace that you probably would not think of if you were not trans,
right.
that make it a more inclusive space for trans people, as well as policies and things of that nature. And then we end with discussing microaggressions. What are they? How are they committed? What does a microaggression against a trans person look like? What are some examples of that? And then how to identify biases in our thinking. And we get some practice with that as a group and then go into the Q&A from there.
Do you ever leave the trainings and think, ah, or do you generally just stay pretty positive about the whole thing?
Honestly, I think that I've never left frustrated. I've only left
Oh, that's
the
so good.
trainings, yeah, feeling empowered and happy and, positive that there are people coming out for these things, and especially cis
Yeah.
people that maybe don't know somebody personally who's trans, but who still care about making their workspaces safe and inclusive. So,
What are some of the
yeah.
things? I mean, I know for Sarah and I, we've become, I'm ashamed to say that for a good chunk of our career, I never thought, I always sort of just took for granted that Tegan and Sarah show was a safe space for people. And like, it was
Mhm.
only in the last maybe 6 or 7 years that we've started to really dive into how to make our concerts and the experience of coming to see Tegan and Sarah a more inclusive experience and remove some of the triggers and awful things that can happen. Like for us, once, watching a lineup be divided into gender and,
Mm.
and then people being pat down and like just had never really thought about how traumatizing, or just like how
Hmm.
alienating or, just stressful that experience might be. So anyway, I feel ashamed to say that we didn't really think that way. We always just assumed that you're coming to a Tegan and Sara concert. It's a cool space
Sure.
to be in. Come on, queers, like it just,
Yeah.
and we started to really make changes. I'm wondering if there's any tips that you have for, like, you're talking about that you are letting these businesses know things that they can do to make experiences for trans employees better. What are some tips you could give us?
Absolutely. So one big area that I think that is a very easy thing and very low cost thing to implement for any workspace or really any space is options around self-identifying. So for example, like on name tags, having the option to state your pronouns, or
Cool.
in email signatures, or at the start of meetings, if you're having a staff meeting or, any sort of a team meeting, um, starting off with introductions in which people are encouraged to state their name and pronouns and position in the company. So just sort of normalizing those practices of not
Yeah.
making assumptions about people's gender and giving people the space to self-identify so that they aren't being thrown into a situation where they're immediately going to get misgendered and then, down it goes from there. So that's
Yeah.
a big one.
That's a
Hmm.
really, I like the idea of, I mean, I feel like lately I've been seeing more and more of that in emails, and I really like it. It makes it, there is something about it, like it takes away the assumption, and I really like that a lot. That's really cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. I manage a coffee shop here in Louisville, and we have this,
Amazing. What coffee
yeah.
shop? Shout it out.
Sure, it's Heine Brothers Coffee. We're a local chain and roastery, and I manage the Douglas Loop location.
Oh, that's so
Um,
cool.
yeah, and we have the option. We've got like a bowl of pronoun buttons that no one has to wear. They're not required, but if they want to, they can wear their pronouns on a button on their apron, and then it's very clear to coworkers, customers, whoever might come into the space, what their pronouns are. And it just it's a great thing that even if you're not trans, just as a as an ally, that you wear those things to normalize that practice.
Yeah.
So just little things like that, that again they take a little more thought and creativity, but they go such a long way in making the space inclusive and feel safer and signaling to people that you are a safe space.
Yeah. I love that. That's really awesome. Um,
Hmm.
my computer went to sleep, so I don't have any of my questions up in front of
Oh,
me.
that's
Not,
okay.
not that I have any issue filling time, asking questions or being inquisitive, but I just had a moment where I was like some sweat started to form. Where I was like, what's happening in my body? Why am I registering stress? And then I was like, oh, it's because I don't have any questions. But will you tell us a little bit about the grant that Tegan and Sara Foundation, like the process, like so of what Queer Kentucky specifically is going to do with the grant money that Tegan and Sara Foundation gave y'all?
Yeah, the grant money we're intending on using specifically to put on and market the trans inclusivity workshops. So that's what I mean. We've started out. We've done a handful of them, and of course, it's sort of we've had a bit of a lull with COVID happening, but
Sure.
we really want to amp that up and bring it to more areas of Kentucky, both in person and for the time being virtual. And so, yeah, the plan is to really throw that money at that project of the workshops and trans inclusivity.
I love that. Will you
Yeah.
also tell us more about you being a poet? You published a book of poetry, right?
Yes. So
Wait,
right
it
now,
has a really good name too. I'm gonna blank on it, but it has an excellent name.
it's called Transitional Object.
Ah,
And
love
while
it.
I'm, signal boosting things, it was published by the operating system, a queer and trans run press out of Brooklyn.
Ah,
They're
cool.
really amazing, doing amazing social justice oriented work. But the book is actually right here.
Oh, excellent.
I'm
Yeah,
at
show it off.
sure. I'm at Nanny Goat Books in Louisville. It's a queer owned and run independent bookstore
Oh,
here.
that's so,
So they carry my book. And so there it is.
whoa.
Yeah.
That's
Thank you so much
amazing.
for asking about that.
Of course, of course. I mean, one of the best parts of being involved with Tegan and Sara Foundation has been meeting. I mean, we just get to meet
There it goes.
so many. Fuck the book. We get to meet so many cool and interesting people who work in, in this world, and their stories are so interesting. And I think I'm learning that many people who work in the social justice world and who work for LGBTQ organizations do a lot of other things on the side, is what I'm finding
Yes.
out.
Oh,
So,
yes.
how did you get to
100%.
Kentucky? Because you're not from there, right?
I'm not from here, no. I'm
Where?
originally from North Dakota, so if you hear my long vowels slipping out, that's my North Dakotan accent coming through. Um, and I moved to Kentucky, originally Lexington, for a grad program in philosophy. So that was sort of my background before I left academia and went back into the service industry where I currently work. But so I moved to Lexington, and then I followed my partner at the time to Louisville. And I've lived here for 3 years. So I've been in Kentucky for a total of 7 years.
Wow. I like
Yeah.
Kentucky. We've had some fun in Kentucky.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a good
It's
place.
it's better than people, who've never been here or lived here, maybe think. Yeah.
Right.
There's a lot of assumptions I think about, us being a conservative state and sort of in the Bible Belt that, oh, this would be a terrible place to live as a queer person, or the queer people who live there are probably desperate to leave. But as someone who's not from here, but who's lived here for several years, it's actually not the case at all. I mean, we have a thriving, rich, diverse, very open, very large queer community, and queer not just in the sense of like gay, of course, but we have a very large, open, visible trans population. We've got a huge leather scene, a very integrated lesbian community. Um,
Wow.
LGBT recovery is thriving here, and so yeah, it's quite an amazing place.
It's one of the things that makes me so sad is that people don't, I think there's just this unfair assumption that if you go to a smaller place or go somewhere that's maybe seen as conservative or religious, that there is no LGBTQ community or it's awful to live there. And often those are where you find the most vibrant communities because you
Yes.
need each other, you pull together, you don't take for granted the people in your community. So
100%. I couldn't agree more.
that's amazing. So
Yep.
tell us a little bit more about what you've been doing during the pandemic. How have you been spending your time and like something fun and then something terrible? Like, I mean,
Okay.
like for me, I can't stop eating chips. That's my terrible.
Hey, that sounds okay to me. Um, so I'm considered an essential worker at my day job at the coffee shop.
Right.
So we're a food and beverage establishment. So we're still open, only doing carry out.
Did you get like the plexiglass or anything like that?
Yeah, we've got the plexiglass in front of our register, and we're wearing masks all the time and
Yeah.
social distancing. And so, yeah, it's a very weird time, but I have an amazing staff. Like, they are so wonderful and have been so strong and brave and helped each other through this. So we've actually had a lot of fun bonding throughout this, and that's probably one of the highlights for me.
Yeah.
Um, and then I guess the downside is just not, I mean, like anybody else, not having anywhere to go. My usual writing spots, I like to write in cafes or out, somewhere in public. And so I'm having to learn and adjust and work from home more, which is, it is
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah. Do you do you feel, not to bring it down, I mean, I'd like to keep positive, but
No,
like, do you feel anxious about what comes next? Like, obviously everyone's opening back up again and, things feel like they're improving in some ways, but, there's no doubt that this is probably going to be an on and off thing for a while. And, do you worry about the community? Like, are there things you're concerned about? Or are there places that you think that we're like, or things that, you're worried we might lose sight of in your community there in Kentucky?
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, of course, I worry about the general safety and health of everybody and all of the new cases and deaths. I don't want to see those spike, of course. I also worry about the economy, not that that's more important than the other things, but they are
Sure.
kind of in tandem. And I worry about the recovery community. I worry about us getting back into physical spaces for meetings because that's so
Yeah.
important. And, I just worry about all the people in my life. I want them all to be safe and happy and healthy. So I'm just trying to take it one day at a time and use the, healthy coping mechanisms that I've learned in my old age to get through it. But
Are
yeah,
there really, like, you mentioned that the community is really strong. Are there a lot of resources at this point for the LGBTQ community? Any you want to shout out for people who might be watching from your area?
absolutely. Yeah. Louisville Trans Men is an amazing social support group for the trans masculine community in the area. Kentuckiana Transgender Social Support Group. And these all have like websites and social media, private chat groups that you can go on anytime and find someone to talk to or communicate with, get resources, ask questions. Trans Women National, Louisville Youth Group is a great support for young people who are queer, LGBT identifying, and that need support. Um, Yeah, so those are just a few that come to mind right
That's
now.
awesome. That's really
Yeah,
great. Thank you. I can see people
sure.
on the screen giving lots of thumbs up, so that's good. Is there anything that you've been watching? And we get this question all the time, so this is why I'm asking because I open my inbox every morning and it's like, these people would like a list of your, what you're listening to during, COVID. Is there anything that's really inspired you, music wise or television wise? Anything, especially in the sort of LGBTQ world, like anything like that?
I'm a little
You're like, I
ashamed to
hate music. You're like, after Tegan and Sara and the con, I was just like, that's it for me.
I was gonna say I'm a little ashamed to say that I did watch Tiger King and kind
I
of
did too. Are we
the
feeling
comic
shame about
relief
it?
and the I don't know. I feel like there's a lot. It's kind of controversial,
It's,
but I did
I
enjoy
know.
it, and it
Yeah.
was kind of lighthearted and weird in some respects. So that kind of was a good distraction for a while. And I'm actually watching Transparent for the first time. I'd never done that before, and
Oh, what do you think?
yeah, I'm only a few episodes in, so I can't
Okay.
say much to the show as a whole, but I'm enjoying experiencing it for the first time. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
I enjoyed it as well. And going back to Tiger King, it's so hard because I just was having this conversation the other day where I was like, it feels like we're not allowed to like anything. You know what I mean? Like that's what it
yes,
feels like lately, which is fine. The world needs it. We need to overcorrect in a way. I think there's been so much garbage and so much problematic stuff for so long. It's probably good that we're
sure.
overcorrecting, but sometimes I'm absolutely terrified. Like even a couple years ago, if someone was like, send us the music that you're listening to, I would just send a playlist and not think twice about it. And now I'm like, I make a list of the music I'm listening to, but then I Google all the artists to make sure they haven't said anything horrible or, because it's
It's
like,
true.
I don't know anything about a lot of the music. For me, music is just music, right? So I don't,
Hmm.
anyway, it's super scary sometimes because I'm like, I'm
Oh, I
not sure if
know.
we're allowed to like things.
Yes, I totally understand that. And like I agree with you. I think that on the whole it's for the best, that overcorrecting, but yeah, it's delicate.
Yeah. But I wonder too, sometimes, like, is it just us that's thinking of, like, there's a segment of the population that thinks about it a lot, and then sometimes I find myself thinking, like, I bet my dad's not at home thinking,
Hmm.
is the weekend problematic, or can I listen to his new record? Like,
If he is thinking that, I would love to meet your dad.
my dad's pretty
Cool.
progressive. He's pretty progressive. He might actually. He might be thinking that. He might be watching. Hi, Dad. I didn't mean to make you seem like you're how did you get in, like, is it your experience, like, is it your experience that you, how do I'm trying to like word this, like, but like, is it your experience that you find LGBTQ content, like television or, books or whatever, that you feel pigeonholed by it, like, and reject it? Because I'm going through a phase like that
Mm,
where I
mm.
cycle through this, where sometimes where something that seems like it's aimed at me comes out, and then I'm just like immediately like, I don't resonate with this. This makes no sense to me. Stop boxing us in. Like, do you ever feel that? Especially because there is so much more trans content coming out and trans representation on television. Do you have that experience?
Sure. I mean, I think that, I mean, you've probably heard it said that trans is like the new gay, where 10 or 20 years ago, we were working to incorporate gay narratives that were multifaceted and complex and dynamic, and
Yeah,
represent those things on television and in film and poetry and wherever else. Um, and that's kind of what's happening now with trans narratives. Like we're seeing more visibility, but it starts out as a very like two-dimensional type of visibility where, you've got the trans man who was trapped in the wrong body since he was two and saying, I'm a man, like I play sports, grunt, and that's just not, that's an oversimplification. That textbook sort of narrative is not everyone's narrative, and it's some
sure.
people's, but everyone's got a different story. And so I think I'm excited to see in coming years in, literature and television and even music, like what we see as far as like a fleshing out of trans identity and experience to where we can see that it's multifaceted and not two-dimensional.
Yeah.
So that's something that I try to do in my, I mean, that's one of the reasons I wake up every day is to write, to make art, to write poetry that does that. And a lot of the people in my life who I'm very close to are kind of doing the same thing. And so it's exciting to be doing that
Yeah.
for sure.
It's so cool. All of this is really inspiring. I mean, I know that it's work too, but a lot of how you're describing the work that you do it's really inspirational. It's really, I mean, I guess there's part of me that I like really like held on to the word educator when I was reading your bio, and this idea that I've a lot of my close friends are teachers, and there's a gift about having knowledge and being able to share it with people and to be able to help people. I think I'm assuming, I'm projecting, but I think a lot of people want to understand, want to be better, want to change, want to grow, want to make the person in their life that might be different and that they don't understand, they make them feel better. And the idea that you're coming to a training or you're going to, some of these resources or these places to get knowledge, and you have this opportunity to give them this knowledge, it must be really wonderful. I imagine it's really rewarding.
It is. It's really rewarding, and in some ways, it's really kind of healing for me too, because as I discuss in my blog and in other places where I've written about this, and also in the workshops, I did experience harassment and like a very hostile, non-inclusive workplace early in my transition. And so, kind of healing from that, and now being able to sort of try to give back or try to remedy that situation for others and even myself going forward. It's a healing and empowering experience for me too. So it's not totally selfless. There's also like that selfish component.
No, you're an angel. No, you're an angel. That's really cool. How can people get involved with Queer Kentucky? Do you have volunteers? I mean, a lot of people are writing on the screen about getting involved. What are things people can do?
Absolutely. So, I mean, we are currently and sort of always looking for new content for the website. So we're looking for writers. We would love to hear from people that are interested in doing something like that. Also, there's on our website, www.queerkentucky.com, there's a want to be featured tab where anybody who's like in the area or the region that wants to tell their story and have a platform to give their perspective at whatever intersection they are in race, class, sexuality, and gender, share their experience, they can submit that there. Also, we would love to see people from elsewhere in the country or in the world participate in any of our upcoming virtual trans inclusive workshop trainings, which are now virtual. So they can go to, visit our social media and find out the dates on those, sign up for them. They're free unless somebody cares to donate. But we, share that with your friends. Anybody who is looking to learn more about making their workplace trans inclusive, we would love to see them on that virtual workshop coming up.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It will be sure to on TSF to repost the website and push people towards that. That sounds really incredible.
Amazing. Thank you.
Not that I want to pivot to negative, but you've really painted a really beautiful picture of the community in Kentucky. But is there still something that needs to change? Is there one thing that you would really like to see change? Is there still like pushback on the community? I mean, can talk a little bit about that.
Sure. I mean, I think that always we can grow more critical and more inclusive and more self-aware as a community. Yeah. And I think even within the community, there are still those factions between the gays and the lesbians, the GL and the B, and the GLB and the T for trans, and so I think the more we can just expose ourselves to and learn and self-educate, the better off we'll be, banded together as a whole as a community. So the more intersectional we can think, and whether that's by reading other people's narratives or attending an event or coming to a workshop or whatever it may be, but it really starts with the individual and educating yourself, and then being an ally to other marginalized folks and standing up for them in situations where you could just be silent is really what I would like to see. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I feel like you're contributing so much and really helping that along. I want to ask you one more question before we sign off. I want to know, what are some of the first things you're planning on doing now that states are reopening up? Or like, you look like you basically just had a haircut, but like maybe you haven't. Maybe this is a grow out. But are there some things you're looking forward to doing? Are there things that you've just been dying to get back into?
It's funny that you would mention my hair, because I gave myself a quarantine haircut.
I think it looks really good.
Oh, really? Thank you so much. Well, my boyfriend went to salon school and was kind of disappointed in me for not letting him cut my hair.
Wait, why didn't you
So
let him cut your hair? I don't understand.
it was one of those impulsive decisions at 10:30 at night when I had nothing better to do, and I just said I'm going for it. So for
Wow.
better or worse. But thank you. I'm glad you don't think it looks too terrible. But yeah, that's probably something I might do, is go get a haircut or get my beard trimmed up from a barber or something like that.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty good. Yeah. Or just go to another local coffee shop and do some writing in public like I like to do.
Yeah.
So
I know it's
yeah.
so funny the things we take for granted, like going to a coffee shop and writing, or or this week in Vancouver, museums opened back up again. And I was like, just had this like wild urge to go wander around. Even if I have to wear a mask, like I'm happy to do that, but
Yes.
to see art, but also see other people, like,
Yes.
in the wild. It'll be very exciting. So,
Absolutely.
well, Adrien, this was like honestly a delight. I really appreciate you spending a half hour with us, and we at Tegan and Sara Foundation are just so impressed by the work you're doing, and are big supporters of Queer Kentucky. I hope everyone watching will go to the website. If you have a few extra bucks to donate, that would be awesome too. And click on the tab and share your story. That's pretty brilliant. And yeah, I hope we can talk again. And thank you so much for doing this and for your work.
Thank you so much, Tegan. We so
Yeah,
appreciate you.
awesome. Okay, bye
All right.
everyone.
Have a great
Okay,
day.
okay, you too, Adrien. Bye.